Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, listeners. This is Brooke. Before we get into the regular episode, I just wanted to make a little announcement. We had announced that we were going to be releasing the And Just Like That episodes every Thursday, but then we had a change of heart because the episode comes out on Thursday.
Yes.
And that means we would always be a week behind.
And that's old news.
That's old news. We're on to the next episode. We can't do that. So we've decided to change it and release the episode on Monday. So the show comes out on Thursday, so you have the whole weekend to watch it. Mm-hmm. And then Monday morning,
here it is.
Hop on and see what we had to say about the latest episode. So just ignore what we say at the end of this episode about Thursdays and look for this podcast every Monday.
Yeah, so enjoy. This is our coverage of And Just Like That, Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Hello and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm the therapist, Tess Brigham.
And I'm the attorney, Brooke Brigham.
All right. So we are back with And Just Like That, Season 2. We are covering episodes 1 and 2 because that's what was released. Or I should probably be saying to you all, Che Pasa. Che Pasa, everyone. Which, gosh, that's quite a name for a sitcom. Che Pasa. So, let's just hear first thoughts. First thoughts on the first episodes of the new season. Highly anticipated for everyone. Absolutely.
At least for us.
Yes. In our world.
I think it seems like it's better than last season.
Yes.
Although there are still some issues. Still some cringiness there. And I think a lot of it has to do, and we're going to talk about this towards the end of the podcast. Mm-hmm. I think the writing and who's writing these scripts is still problematic.
Yes.
But I do think I liked it better. And I think that it seemed more like, okay, maybe we're getting back into, some more fun. I mean,
yes.
But to be fair, I mean, last season it started out very heavy, obviously, with Big's death. And then that, went on. Carrie was basically grieving his death for the whole season. So she wasn't a lot of fun,
Yes. Yes. I mean, this obviously, and they talk about this because we both listen to, there is an HBO podcast companion called The Writer's Room that is hosted by Michael Patrick King, who is the executive producer and head writer of the show. And the two women that have been writing the show with him, what is it, Elisa
Zaritsky and Julie Rottenberg.
So, and they host the show, and then they'll bring on whomever the staff writer is who's written that episode on the show to talk about, what was going on. And so they very much address that, which is that they needed to be lighter. And the way they opened the show was everyone having sex, right? Like they wanted to show that this was going to be a different season, a newer season, a lot more sex. The one thing is that hit me, and I had those same feelings that you did, which is this is a lot lighter. This is better. We're having a lot more fun.
Yeah.
We're having a lot more fun with the fashions. We're having a lot more fun with this part. But I think I feel like, and the writers aren't addressing this, I feel like they've painted themselves in a little bit of a pickle, which is this, is we now have, yes, we've lost Samantha, but we now have, in addition to Carrie, Charlotte, and Miranda, we now have Che, Naya, LTW, and Seema. 4 amazing characters, 4 amazing women with interesting lives. And so now we have 7 people we have to follow. And yes, the show, each episode was 45 minutes-ish? But this was, if you watch Ted Lasso, this was a Ted Lasso problem too. And if you watch season 3 really bothered me of Ted Lasso because they introduced too many characters. And so that was the problem with Ted Lasso. And this is the problem they're having now, which is, and I can see it very clearly, which is you've got way too many characters and too many people to follow. And some storylines are really big and heavy, and some storylines are very light and stupid. And I feel like we're spending a lot of time on the light, stupid ones, and we're not spending so much time on the heavy ones. And I do understand maybe why you want to spend some time on the light ones, but then that's really making the heavy ones seem really like you're tossing them aside. And then why put that heavy one in here if you're going to spend all this time with this light one? You know what I mean? And when you think about it, you think, well, I do kind of want to see what's going to happen with these other 4 people. I do want to see what's going to happen with these 4 characters, but it's a lot. Like, keeping up with 7 storylines. So what happens is we get these very quick clips. And I think we're going to get into a pickle.
It's not moving fast enough, like with the ancillary characters like Naya. Yeah, because they don't get, like, she doesn't get as much screen time as the others. And so her story is just kind of moving along at a snail's pace. And also they need to integrate these people more together, because with the core 4 from the first series, they were always together. And so that you're not having all these separate things. Whereas here, we haven't integrated like Seema in with everybody else. She's still just like Carrie's friend. Yeah. And Naya's still Miranda's friend.
And Miranda's not even in New York. So that's a bit of the problem. Well, and that's the other thing too, is you realize when Charlotte shows up to Carrie's house and she sees the podcast producer and they're walking along and she's like trying to be Samantha and she's trying to be Miranda, that you realize like, oh, she's the only one there. Yeah. Like, yeah, she has to be, because the other 2 aren't there.
And they also have Anthony. He's like a big character too. Yeah. So that's now 8 people.
Well, they have Anthony, and don't forget they have the husbands of all these people. Yeah. And we've got, it's just a lot of people. It's a tremendous amount. And the children. Don't forget the children. Oh, we got the children of the people. And we've got their issues and all of that. So these are a lot of... So even if you're making these episodes 45 minutes to try to squeeze everything in, other storylines are getting, just the short tail end of things. And the Charlotte stuff is the stuff that's super boring. Honestly, like the Charlotte stuff, like really we're going to run after and, yell at this woman about this Chanel dress. Yeah. And this is it, when there's all this more interesting things. And I understand, yes, she's one of the main characters and we want to follow her, and I understand the purpose of her storyline about letting things go and seeing your daughter growing up. I get the story, but try to see this in the context of this take a step back, Michael Patrick King. Look at it in the context of this entire story that you're telling. Like, how how interested are people going to be?
Yeah, that was boring. That went on too long. But there are some other things that I think the Wexleys are extremely interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
They stood out for me.
But then we're seeing her. Yeah, that's the problem though. We're seeing her with Charlotte, but we saw one lunch, right, with Seema and Carrie and Charlotte and Anthony. Mm-hmm. But that's it. We're not seeing. And that's what made Sex and the City work, right? Which is they did have these individual lives and they had these experiences and they come together and then they have these experiences and come together. And because there's so many of them and obviously Samantha's not there and Miranda's across the country, it's like, it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It's a lot. It's a lot to juggle and a lot happened. I also noticed that Carrie, her character, she seems much more chill, because she was a little more, in the first series, a little more, her energy was different. Mm-hmm. And it kind of feels like, I don't know, she's been through a lot and she's kind of like, what does it matter? Telling Charlotte, this isn't that serious.
Yeah.
You need to let this go. And I kind of like chill Carrie.
Yeah. Well, I think that's more appropriate. And I think that one of the women, I feel like I should have written this down, but one of the women, when I was listening to the podcast, I was like in bed listening to it. So one of the either Julia or Elisa, one of the producers, writers said this about women and, how you are in your 20s and 30s versus how you are in your 50s, that there's something about, because you've been through a lot of pain, by the time you get to your 50s, that there is this joyousness that you feel.
You don't have any more fucks to give.
Yeah. And it's true.
They say.
And I will say that this is sort of what we're seeing. And I think that seeing Charlotte react the way she is, I think maybe that's what I'm bothered by, because it does feel silly. It does feel ridiculous, because I kind of feel like a woman of Charlotte's age you're on your second marriage, you went through all of this, you learned a big lesson, you found this second husband, you've been through, you wanted to have a child desperately, and then you finally had a child on your own. Like, you've been through so much on your own. Like, really? You're giving fucks about this now? Like, I don't know. It just felt forced and fake.
Yeah. Well, I think it's to set up the arc of her character this season, which from the previews seems to be that she does have this realization that, I am a person, I have a life, because she's just given over her life to her family and her kids. And now her kids are older and she's like, wait a minute, what about me? And she sort of has this thing about, getting back to herself. And so I think maybe that's how they were setting that up. But because we don't know where these storylines are going.
Yes.
So maybe we'll look back and be like, oh, well, okay, well, that's why she was so crazy in the first episode.
Yes.
So, okay, so how should we do this?
Yeah.
So
let's talk about each of the characters and sort of what they're going through.
Okay, so episode 1 is called Met Cute because they are going to, the people in New York are all going to the
Met Ball,
but they're calling it a ball, but it's the Met Gala. But I don't know, maybe
Met
they had
Gala,
to change it to not be sued or something. I don't know. So they open up with basically everybody having sex except for Naya.
Yeah,
and I thought this was interesting too. We have Charlotte tits out, Miranda tits out, and then later Miranda is fully nude.
She's out there. She's putting it out there.
And she has to put on a strap on. I mean, I guess she's the new Samantha.
Yeah. Yeah.
she has to do the
she does.
The heavy lifting. So it was like, oh, yeah. And then Carrie's scene, I knew that they were doomed when, basically Carrie is in bed with Franklin and they're doing the missionary position and she has her sweatshirt on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I just think that he was super cute, but they really had no chemistry.
Yeah, he was very dull. I mean,
and I don't understand why. I mean, I understand understand why they cast him, but God, you couldn't have found someone that was a little bit older that was cute.
Well, maybe they wanted it that way of like, you know, he's just sort of this safe transition figure.
I guess so. But yeah. But yeah, it didn't think it was going to last because they were just sitting there and she's like, why do you like cooking shows? I'm like, this is the most boring conversation I've ever been a part of in my life. This is a TV show?
No passion.
Like, really?
No passion at all. So, so Seema is going to go with Carrie to the Met Ball.
Yes.
And Charlotte is going to go with Anthony, and then LTW is going to go with her husband.
And those were the only people going, right?
Yeah.
Those three couples.
Yeah. Naya is, you know, I guess her and her husband are kind of on a break, or he's on a tour of...
He's gone. I don't think they were officially on a break, but I think they were on a break from trying to conceive a child. I think that was the break they were on.
Okay. So, but he's out on tour or something. And I don't know. I don't know what they're going to, she needs to get away from that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's awful.
Yeah.
She needs to just,
but I feel like this whole thing, I feel like they're trying to hurry this along to get her single.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one where when we saw her in the beginning where you saw her and she like clicked on the TV and she was alone, I thought they had jumped to, okay, so she got divorced or she's single now. And I thought, why can't we just jump right to her being single? Mm-hmm. Like, why can't we just jump to, is that the end of the world? Like, would the audience be mad if we just all learn that things didn't work? Or in episode 1, like they broke up? Like, why do we have to, I mean, by episode 2 they are, but it just seems so silly that, but again, we're back to this, my issue, which is Karen Pittman, the actress. She's a very, very good actress, you know, and they're kind of just wasting her in these scenes. Just,
yeah, she better get, they better do something with her soon because, and then she passes up a chance to be with that totally hot guy that in the bar for her stupid, because of her. I hate that husband.
But I think that she probably is like, I gotta, you know, because she doesn't want to cheat on him. And then she's pissed. And then he's there in the hotel with Heidi in the hat and she's drunk and all of it. It's, I don't know. I think this was one where we could have wrapped, I mean, again, too many characters, too much going on.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing about this Carrie's podcast where they show they show Carrie doing her podcast and they I guess they talked about this on the Writers Room podcast where people were like, you know, there's no such thing as call-in shows anymore.
You can't call into a podcast.
Yeah. So they decided to do voicemails because people do voicemails now with podcasts. Okay. So they do this voicemail show. And so they said, okay, well, we wanted to show her answering voicemails. So Carrie's doing her Sex and the City show. And this is how she gives her advice. She's like, well, I'm no expert, but da-da-da-da-da. I'm thinking to myself,
then why do you have a show?
Why the fuck do you have a show, Carrie Bradshaw? Like, what? I was pissed. I'm like, her whole podcasting thing and the second episode of what happens in the podcast.
Unreal.
I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm no expert, but I think this, I know it was just a vehicle for him to get, for her relationship with the podcast producer to move forward, because she gives this person this, you know, how do you know it's just a relationship or it's just sex? And she gives this advice, and then that sparks the podcast producer to ask her out for a non-Thursday date. And
also the question, it's a softball question, and it's not a sex question either. This is supposed to be Sex in the City. I don't know. It's like, that was really dumb.
Well, but why do you, again, this is a show that is written, I'm no expert, and then it's like, well, then why?
Well, then get off the podcast.
Get off the air.
Yeah. Gosh.
I hate people that are just handed things and it's like, well, I'm no expert, but I'm going to make a bunch of money doing this stupid show.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. So I thought we were doing character by character, but you're going in order.
Well, I don't know how to do this.
Okay. Then just keep going in order. That's fine. Keep going.
I'm just going through.
Okay. Go in order.
My notes here.
Okay.
because it's too hard. Otherwise, you get off on too many tangents. Okay, so Miranda's in LA, and she's doing this sensory deprivation tank thing. And Michael Patrick King had told us on his podcast that he had done this.
Yes.
And so that's why he wrote it in.
Have you ever done that?
No.
I have.
I'm claustrophobic. I couldn't do that.
It's not, well, I don't think I've ever done the sensory. I've done the thing where you lay in the pool in the pod. The whole thing doesn't completely close, but half of it's closed and then half of it's open. I will tell you that I've done it. It is kind of super boring. Like after you float there for a while. I mean, it's nice. You float there for a while and then you're like, okay, I'm floating. And then it's like anything else where these places, they're just kind of, this is all it is. So you go, you rush to get there, you park, you do this, then you're all wet. And so when it's over, you take a shower and then you kind of then just leave. And then now you're back in the world again. It's kind of like,
didn't really do anything for you.
It doesn't, it doesn't help you in any way, shape or form. It just kind of you just get kind of wet and bored.
Yeah.
I don't recommend them.
It didn't look fun to me.
Yeah.
So why don't we just talk about this is so much stuff here. I don't know how to talk about this.
Well, here,
should we just talk about it character by character?
Yes, that's what I was saying. Okay, so let's go back to, let's talk about the Carrie stuff.
Carrie.
So Carrie and the podcast producer.
Okay, so that's going nowhere. And their big story in these first few episodes is that, and we predicted this.
Yes, I was like, yes.
We predicted this last week. Episode 2, Carrie is forced with the difficult task of having to do a commercial for a vaginal wellness product.
Yes.
And Carrie, who's supposed to be the sex expert and supposed to be so open and whatever.
Oh, yes.
Cannot even bring herself to, talk about vaginal wellness.
Oh, yes.
They don't say vaginal dryness. They say vaginal wellness. And she is just incensed.
Yeah.
She says, I can't do this. I can't talk about it. And Franklin's like, well, okay. And then he tells the next higher up, Chloe, Carrie just can't do this ad. And Chloe's like, she needs to do it or else this whole podcast is going to get shut down, which it doesn't. It was so funny. Carrie single-handedly shut down all of those people got fired and lost their jobs because Carrie wouldn't read that ad.
Yes, all because Carrie, just being goddamn Carrie, wouldn't read a stupid ad. Now, I would just like to say to anyone who's listening, if you're a sponsor, we will read ads.
I'll talk about vaginal dryness all day.
About vaginal. If you're a sponsor and want to pay us, we will read about vaginal dryness constantly. I'm fine doing that. Yeah, I have no shame.
Any
product, any product, sex toys, I don't care. So, yeah, I mean that whole thing.
It was so funny.
It was so stupid and so ridiculous, and so. I don't quite understand why this becomes the thing. And I think they had to create something where they had to take their relationship from the podcast to home or something, right?
Yeah, they're working away.
I love it. He's like,
copy.
Well, I downloaded Final Draft, which is a screenwriting, which is known to, I understand, is like a screenwriting thing.
This is like a 1 minute commercial.
Like, do you have Word? You could write it in your phone.
Exactly, on your notes.
Yes, your notes app. So, they're just going through all of this, and they don't even have any interesting banter or
there's no jokes. None
of it's interesting.
Vagina jokes. Nothing.
None of it's funny. None of it's interesting. None of it's any of it. And so that's the other part of it. Is like, so without Kim Cattrall, like, is there nothing?
No one can do sex, apparently.
Yeah, nobody can even talk about these things or think any, like, they cannot make any, like, that whole wet ass pussy joke, none of that was even funny, or like Carrie the whatever she called herself, like, because he was referencing Megan Thee Stallion, like none of that was funny, none of that was interesting, but I guess they had to find this reason.
I just just can't believe that caused them to go out of business.
But I thought that was a joke, though. I thought they were trying to make that character kind of like they have this woman in this character who I guess Chloe, who is very one note. She's just angry all the time. And she comes in, but was she really blaming Carrie for that? I think she was just kind of like, I think she was just sort of saying like this network's falling apart. And
well, no, because remember she said she made reference to the fact that the podcasting world was
it's not like 2021.
It's not 2021. We've got to do these ads. It was a non-negotiable. The higher ups, I guess this was a big ad.
Yeah, okay.
They were paying big
Vaginal
bucks.
dryness is a big deal in the ad world.
It is. I mean, a lot of middle-aged ladies love podcasts.
I guess so.
I think there's a grain of truth in here.
A lot of Karens out there need their suppositories or whatever that thing was.
Yeah, she was making it sound like this was a huge deal, and if Carrie didn't do it, the advertiser's going to pull out. And lo and behold, that's what happened, and they went out of business. Everyone lost their job.
Yeah. Well, and this is one of the things that I think is interesting, because the way, which I never really saw the way other people did, is a lot of people really hate the character of Carrie. They think she's a real asshole.
Oh, and she kind of is.
She is, and this is another asshole Carrie move. And of course, what you got to love about her is she's got all this money. Like, she doesn't need this job.
Right.
She's like, well, I guess I'm free now on Thursdays.
And just like that, I freed up my week.
It's like, well,
it's like,
now
bitch, you got now the people are out of work.
Because poor Franklin's got to go find a new job.
Right, easy for you to say.
Yeah,
it's like,
you got millions of dollars,
big money.
Yeah, so but you don't need this money, but but everyone else is now out of a job. But she's done with that. So I think they needed to wrap the Franklin stuff up.
Yeah.
But, okay.
So that's
Carrie.
That's kind of all that happened with her.
Yeah.
And the other part, she was just like a tag along with the whole dress thing.
Oh, that's right.
So the Met Ball.
So I guess they wanted to get her, which I do love. I do appreciate when they try to integrate the fashions, and we're able to see new fashions and then fashions from the old, and they wanted to integrate her wedding dress, the first wedding dress. So I guess, of course, she had to have this disastrous dress situation that forced her to go back and wear the wedding dress from the first marriage to Big.
And it worked, I thought.
And it worked, yeah.
The cape that the woman Smoke made was the same color as that bird thing she had in her hair for the wedding. So she put that on, put the dress on with cape. I thought it looked great.
Yeah. And the thing that LTW wore for the Met, I loved that Valentino, the face thing, and they had a shot where he's holding her train. I mean, that shot was gorgeous. That was spectacular. Just unreal. And so you see these moments that are just, the fashions and all of that, gorgeous.
Yeah. And, and then, we can talk about the Charlotte when we get there. Her thing was weird.
So you want to talk about Miranda and the Che?
Yeah, I guess they pretty much go together.
So Miranda is in LA. And what I love about the opening sequence is everyone's like, it's nighttime and all that. But of course, Miranda's in LA. So of course, what I love is Che, yes, is a well-known comic, but they've rented Che a beautiful home.
A villa.
A villa. Yeah, I would just like to say in
with
Hollywood,
a private pool.
They would put her up in an apartment. I'm sorry, I should say they would put them up in an apartment. The studio would put someone like Che up in an apartment somewhere. That is so unreal that Che would get that beautiful home.
Yeah, no, I didn't understand that at all.
So, but I just love, it's like, now we have to show LA. So, pool. And of course, they're
having sex in the pool.
They're having sex in the pool. They're just loving it. But it's not all
glamorous.
Yes. So, Miranda, of course, the big issue is that Miranda has to find things to do.
Yeah, she has nothing to do.
She has nothing to do because Che's really, really busy with their show, and so she has the sensory deprivation tank.
Yeah, that's one day
experience, and then then the other one was the going to AA.
That was odd.
That was really odd. And did you hear what Patrick Michael King was saying on the podcast? He was like, so, we picked up where we left off in the first season and we had Miranda go to AA. And I'm like, that was the most random thing.
Though.
I was like, no, you all introduced her as an alcoholic, dropped it midway through. Right. And
she just poured out all her booze and went on with didn't hear a peep about it or that it was an issue or a problem.
Yeah.
Now she has to go to AA.
So I almost got the sense of like, is she so, at first I thought, is she so bored that she decided to go to an AA meeting? And I thought she was about to tell someone, like, I'm not really that big of an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just here.
Well, and also too, they made, I don't know if they made reference to this or I just drew this connection, but obviously if you're in a new place, you don't know anyone, the only person you know is working all day, that's a lot of time on your hands and being bored, and that probably would lead to drinking if you're a person who likes to drink.
Yes.
And so I could see that, but they never really explained that,
I think something like that would be really interesting. Like, let's show Miranda starting to drink and maybe realizing that she needs to drink and then maybe going to an AA meeting.
Or realizing that she needs to find something else to do so she doesn't just sit around and drink all day.
Yes. Yeah, that's a little more interesting or realistic than her just, now she's part of AA? Okay.
Yeah, and then so in the meantime, Che is get this fitting.
So
for her for their wardrobe for the pilot, and they're making reference to the fact that she has a muffin top. They want her to wear. To wear a jacket that's very ugly.
Oh yeah, and also the whole thing is It's sort of this typical thing that happens, and it's shown in shows a lot, but it's also because it happens in real life, which is, they're taking Che's real story and they're starting to make changes and they're watering it down and they're putting them in a kind of wacky comedy. Let's put them in a funny jacket with funny lapels, and they're already Che's already starting to get a little nervous here about where is this going. But what drives me crazy is that, and I know for a lot of people, like, Che was very polarizing. People really did not like Che at all. And I think a big reason why was people blame Che for the breakup of Steve and Miranda, which is, so silly because Che didn't do it. But my issue with Che wasn't a very good comedian. I didn't think Che was funny. And so the one clip they show of Che's comedy is this. Nobody walks in LA. Hey, it's like, hello, this has been the oldest LA joke known to man, is nobody walks in LA. So I had to take an Uber from my bathroom to my kitchen.
Well, see, what you're doing right there, that sort of, she's a caricature. I can never say this word. Caricature of this, hey, show busy, like a radio, hey, it's 68 degrees, happy Tuesday. That is how how they perform. And I think that's what I didn't like about Che. Just this cheesiness. It's like, the comedy concert, all the jokes that they told were cheesy. I mean,
bad jokes,
cheesy. Her whole persona was cheesy, and people were offended by that. And I think the writers heard people loud and clear on it. And I can see that Che is moving away from that, because you can see that some feelings are starting to come up.
Trying to show Che's vulnerability.
Yeah, the vulnerability more. Because she's making they are making a pilot about their life. And maybe this stuff about the weight triggered something about their childhood. And then the thing with Tony Danza, and now we have to, it can't be the Mexican father. It's got to be a Italian father. So I can see Che changing.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's funny because Che, who was the character that everybody, was so no one liked. It's this storyline I think is really interesting because, right, the vulnerability of, I think what we thought would happen, and I think some of the things that are happening we all sort of saw would happen, which is Miranda's not going to have enough to do. She's going to get bored. This isn't really good. You don't really know each other as well. And so Miranda's starting to learn that, like, oh, you were married, and oh, you know, I don't know you as well as I do. And oh, this is all new. But I think that it's realizing that I think that the Che that it was in New York was full of themselves and really felt themselves and was like, I'm here and look at me and I'm wonderful. And now they're in LA and they're not at the top of their game. They're not the biggest whatever.
And people are telling them what to do, what to wear, and it's changing the story.
And it's a lot. And it's they're not as confident as they once were.
Right.
And so that's a lot to take in for sure. And so we're seeing these dynamics. But what I don't quite understand is, which makes no sense at all, which is like Miranda and the cleaning that up and losing her phone. So obviously all of this was a vehicle to get
to meet Che's husband.
Yeah, to meet Che's husband. But Che, just send an Uber. There are Ubers out there. Like, why? You knew
Miranda doesn't know about this person.
And you know who Miranda is.
Yeah.
And you know this would upset Miranda.
Yeah.
You know this. So you know when you got home from this dinner, but Che's acting like it's nothing.
Yeah.
So there's these other things of like, huh? Like what?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I love seeing Tony Danza.
Oh,
He's,
yeah.
You know, breath of fresh air.
Oh, Tony Danza, come on. But, and it's funny too, because everyone said this, and I don't know if the writers listened to this or not, but like everyone said like, well, Tony Danza can't play her Mexican father. Like he's Italian. And of course, this is his big issue. It's like, I can't play your Mexican father. I can't be canceled. What do they call them? The Danza Lions?
Danza Lions?
Oh, yes.
Is that a real thing?
I don't know.
Look that up.
But yeah, the Danza Lions can't have that.
Were people really complaining about...
Well, it was a comment. Like a lot of people talked about how she made this comment, right? There's talks of Tony Danza playing my, dad. And people were like, well, he's Italian, like, so this was talked about. And I think these things are important, but this is how these shows go. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
These shows get watered down and people's, realities get squished and changed and all of these things. I mean, this is how these things roll for sure.
Well, yeah, this is going to be very interesting with Che's husband. Can't wait to hear this story.
What this is all about. And I hope this doesn't become a thing of like, oh, he's introduced and then he just goes away and now he's gone.
I don't think so. I mean, it's Oliver Hudson. Yeah. He's a big name. He's not just going to come on for
I hate
one
to be
episode.
But Oliver Hudson, I mean, besides doing that podcast with his sister, like
Oliver Hudson was on a TV show. I can't remember what it was.
Oliver Hudson's not.
Well, he's very good looking.
He is very good looking, but
I'd like to just look at him.
I just like to say that he is the least famous of his family, and he is not. Yes, he's on TV shows and he's doing things, but he will take any part that he is going to get in this show. So I'm just saying.
Well, I disagree a little bit, but I think that I don't think they'd bring him on. They'd just get some random really hot guy. You know what I mean? If it was a one-off, just...
Well, I definitely think we're going to see him again, but I'm worried this is going to be like a one-episode thing, and then we're just like Miranda's drinking, and then it's just going to go away. I'm like, we need, you've introduced this character. Like, what's the purpose of this?
Well, I think it's going to... Well, because Che is non-binary and queer, so what does that mean to them? What are the boundaries or whatever of their sexuality? Maybe they are still attracted to this person, the husband. Why haven't they gotten a divorce? You could take that into a lot of, places.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But
all right.
Is that it for them?
Yeah. But Miranda needs to get back to New York.
Yeah.
Because with Samantha being gone, the three of them need to be together. You know, we need more of that for sure.
Yeah.
So let's see, who else is there? We've talked about Naya and her whole thing with that, right? We can be done with that.
I have no idea where Naya is going.
Let's talk about, we want to talk about Seema.
Okay.
So Seema, we didn't see enough of Seema. I really like Seema, but Seema's whole thing was that she's still dating Zed from last season, who was super cute, that I had very high hopes for.
And he might be kind of a scammer.
Yeah, I had really high hopes for him. I thought they were like going places. And then in the first episode, of course, you know, he wants her to meet his son, which is, of course, a good sign. And, but his ex is going to be there too. And of course, the one day they can meet is the day of the Met Gala. And, but she learns that Zed is still living with his ex-wife. So she's like, forget this, I'm going to the Met. And, but he says to her, no, that's not true. But she lives on 2 floors. I live on 1 floor. And she leaves, and then she meets with her, I guess she gets a blowout every day, and she meets with that guy
every day,
and her or every other day or something. And her hairdresser tells her, you know, hey, you tend to have a lot of, you know, you're one of the reasons maybe why you're still single is you have a laundry list of things. And if someone doesn't check every box, then you write them off, which I think is a very interesting idea and a very interesting storyline, because this feels closest to the old show, right? Because she is the one character that is never been married, no kids, who is closest to that place.
And she reminds me of Samantha. Like in this episode, these episodes, a lot of her lines were very Samantha-esque. You know, like she storms out of the salon saying, I pay you to blow me, not to... I forget the whole line, not to, you know, bring me down or something like that. And she reminds, I think she's sort of, they're grooming her to be the new Samantha character.
Yeah. And so that's the whole thing, right? When they knew that Kim Cattrall wasn't going to return, why couldn't they have just Seema? Why couldn't Seema be introduced into the show, have her be Carrie's new friend, and then get her to integrate with all the other women and be the fourth? Like, then people would be like, well, then you're just replacing her with, I mean, obviously people would have criticisms of that.
Yeah, they have to do it gently.
Yeah, but you have to do that part gently. But it at the same time, that would have been a little more interesting than now we've got, it's just, there's so many characters because we're not seeing enough of Seema. Like, then, because I would like to see another scene of her talking about all the relationships she's been in, or this guy or that guy. Like, I'd like to sit down with like the hairdresser and an old friend saying, you dumped him for this and him for that and da-da-da. Like, let's hear about this. Like, we don't know enough about, there's not enough time because we don't know what's going on. But then she decides, okay, she makes up with the hairdresser and she decides to take Zed back. Then, of course, very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time, Zed's like, well, I have an investment for you.
I need $200,000 or something.
And so now she's like, I'm out again. And that's that.
Well, I don't blame her. I mean, Zed, he does seem kind of smarmy. But I think she is going to be dating around.
Yes. But I think that's fun. I think it's fun to watch her date around, but I want to see this. I mean, I think that was what was interesting about the original show, was watching these women and their characters date and how they navigate that.
Well, and she is like the only character besides Herbert's mother that has parents that we've seen. We saw her parents in the Diwali episode, and then I think we've met her brother or a cousin. Or her cousin was the one who did Carrie's hip surgery. So, I mean, that's something that's always been missing from Sex and the City.
Yeah.
We have never seen a parent.
Yeah, because they didn't want that. They didn't want them to have, it was supposed to be stuck in this time.
Right.
They weren't supposed to have parents. There wasn't supposed to be a lot of family.
Yeah. I would like to see they don't have to do it for every character, but I don't even know, does Carrie have parents? Are they still alive? Like, I know nothing. I remember when Miranda's mom died. I'd love to see Charlotte's parents. Like, who did she come from? You know, and I think it'd be interesting. And I like the character of Herbert's mother. I think she's interesting. You know, just add some dynamics to it. And the thing with the Indian thing and not being married, that's huge. Huge.
Well, let's talk about Charlotte, and then we can talk about LTW since they go together. So I thought the Charlotte storylines were hands down the most boring. And if Charlotte's arc this season, which I think is a good one, which is, and it happens for a lot of women, which is I've devoted the last... You know, because Charlotte famously in the series gave up her job to be a wife. She was wanting to be a mother. That didn't happen, and then took her a while. But she gave up her work to be a mom, a stay-at-home mom, to be this Uber mom, to do all of this. And here she is, and she's like, "What do I do now?" And she obviously financially doesn't need to work, but she needs to find purpose. And so. I understand that they kind of need to, you know, ease us all into this, that she can't just wake up one day and decide, oh, I need to find purpose. But these storylines of how she's finding purpose, and even her stuff last year, I thought was ridiculous. Like, I don't know why they give her these storylines. Her stuff always is so silly, and Charlotte's not dumb. Like, Charlotte's not a dumb person.
Yeah.
You know? At all.
Yeah. I mean, the most interesting thing is, that her kids are finding themselves breaking away from the Charlotte mold. And I loved Lily's song about
the power of privilege.
The power of privilege. I love that song.
Power of privilege. That is so great. But what I don't understand is that song is not subtle at all.
No. So
clear. So why can't Charlotte from that song realize, oh, this is what's really going on here?
Yeah.
Why does it take her having to be like this Uber bitch to this girl at this real deal place, and Carrie saying something to her to get her to finally realize, like, this is what's really going on? Like, I'm sorry, the power of privilege was pretty clear.
It's pretty intense. And, you know, remember, I mean, Lily was adopted. She's not white. You know, she's kind of been living this, you know, model minority lifestyle, but she's in this white family and this, you know, what I mean, Lily, I'm sure, is full of issues.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know, Charlotte has to come to terms with that, you know, that these daughters that she has are not, you know, what she necessarily envisioned or how it's been all. It's actually a huge thing that's happening, and they really could make a very interesting story arc over that. And so I hope they address that more, and I do think she needs to get back more to herself and let her kids do their own thing. But again, she's sort of stuck in that Charlotte mode.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I thought that the series did with I always loved how they handled the Charlotte storyline, because they did such a great job with this beautiful woman who was so clear. I want to get married. I want to have a family. And she was so like, there are rules to this, and this is how it's going to be. And she was so focused on marriage, and the way everything looked and how it was going to be. And so she ends up marrying this like beautiful man from this wealthy family, and he's impotent, right? And it's all about what looks on the outside, not what's happening on the inside. And it's a terrible, you know, and he's impotent. And then finally things get better, but it's it's one bad thing after another. And so here she is, you know, and she gets divorced, and it's terrible. And then she meets this guy who is not at all what she ever envisioned, but really deep down inside, he's amazing and wonderful. And then she learns this big lesson around, right? And so it's all this growth for her. And so I always felt like, but she had so much growth with that, right? And she became Jewish, and it was like she learned how to like let go of the, you know, how things look and how things are, and, you know, having her child. And obviously she was always going to be this Park Avenue princess, but it just seemed, you know, they just weren't ever going to let her get any deeper than that. Like throughout this series, throughout the movies, it's like, let's just keep Charlotte just Park Avenue Princess. And you have this opportunity now to like, let's make her a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Yeah. The deepest she ever got was when after Rose, well, now Rock was born, she kind of had a meltdown, you know, and that's when Miranda told her, you know, it's okay, and tried to console her, and that was kind of it. Like, that's the most vulnerable we've ever seen her.
Yeah, yeah. But I think this could be a really interesting. But instead, it's just this obsession with this Chanel thing. But we spent a lot of time on this storyline. I felt like a tremendous amount on this storyline, and then for the Met Gala, she was supposed to be, I thought her outfit was real weird.
It was real weird.
I did not like it.
She was wearing a top hat, and she looked like Mary Poppins or something.
Well, it was kind of the steampunk look, which did not, I mean, in comparison to what LTW was wearing and what, I mean, Carrie obviously was wearing, it was all veiled. They have to have veils, but I was like, why are you wearing gilded? It was gilded out. So is it supposed to be like the Gilded Age? It was veiled something. I don't know.
What was the title? I don't remember.
It was veiled something. They needed to get veiled in there because they wanted to get the wedding dress in there.
Yeah. I don't know. Who cares?
Yeah. But that whole thing was very odd.
Yeah.
Very, very odd. But the big joke was that Anthony kept moving around everybody's date.
Yeah, poor Anthony.
But he finally got in there in the end.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so then
there's the LTW stuff, which is which was a bigger thing, but again they shoved it in there.
Yeah, I liked how they. I don't know. I just really liked them. I thought, LTW. She's, she is also a Park Avenue princess, but she also cares very much about instilling, certain values and things into her children. And that's why she, even though she doesn't need to go get $25,000 from somebody, and Herbert says, can I just give you, but her daughter's standing there and she's like, no, like, I'm going to show you, I can do this myself. I'm capable, whatever. And then, Herbert seems to have very specific needs.
This guy,
he expects her to cater. He has a lot of sexual needs. Okay?
Yes, he has a lot of needs, and he also. That's the other thing. I also like. Why does she have to do everything?
Right.
I mean, and it's very interesting. And she and Charlotte seem to have to do everything for these men.
But she at least kind of shades him. She makes these little comments about how, she has to, reminding him all these things that she does for him. So I feel like she's got she's going to have a blow up at some point. I feel like she's suppressing a lot of the demands that her husband is placing on her. And that whole thing about how, let me do this to help relax you. And it's like, this isn't for, and she even says it afterwards. She's like, oh, that wasn't for me. That was for you.
Yeah. It's like, what would be most relaxing is if you got the kids ready, or you
I can
shut
finish
up,
getting ready.
or you maybe got out of my goddamn way, or asked me what you could actually do for me.
Yeah, she's trying to deal with this emergency on the computer, and she's trying to get ready for this thing, and all he wants to do is all he can think about is having sex.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love the mother-in-law, and I love that whole. Thing when she, what she said to Herbert after the cab incident and everything, and which is a very real thing. And
well, that's why I felt like, okay, well, that moment was when I got flashbacks to last year, because in the midst of this, there seemed to be three storylines happening here. We've got Charlotte with the Chanel dress. We've got Carrie in the vagina ad. And then we've got Herbert and he can't get a cab. So we have two things here that are real light and funny. And then we have this very serious thing, which is a very real and true thing, which has been something that's been talked about not recently. This black men not being able to get cabs has been an issue for
forever.
Ever.
Yeah.
This has been talked about for as long as I've been alive and beyond that. So this And, you know, what we saw and what happened is a very real and true thing. And the conversation that they had afterwards is a very real and truth conversation. And we're having this very, you know, serious thing. And in the midst of Chanel and vaginas,
right?
You know, and it's like, so I just want to, and they didn't talk about this on the podcast. It's like, so was this intentional? Was this like, is this you wanting to like, let's be light and fun Sex in the City and then be political in the middle of it? Or are you not kind of getting it? Or because of the 3 storylines, that was the one least talked about.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like,
well, because it's a heavy topic. And,
yeah.
And, you know, and then the mother-in-law, what's her name? Eunice or?
Yes.
I think her name's Eunice.
I think.
She understands that, you know, coming from, you know, her age and her background, or she understands like this is a life and death thing. Like you can't act out as a Black person, especially a Black man. You cannot act out in public. It could be life or death for you. And they have 2 sons, you know, in addition to the daughter. And she's trying to tell him like, look,
even though you're on Park Avenue,
and you're a banker, you know, and you're wealthy and you're in a suit, you know, look, you still can't get a cab.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very heavy thing. And then when she made that comment to LTW about, because LTW had a headscarf on, I didn't understand this until it was explained. I think it was explained on the podcast. She made that comment. She said, "I thought the Emancipation Proclamation freed us from headscarves." And that went over my head. I'm like, huh? And then it was either that podcast or the one I was telling you about, the Vulture podcast, where one of the writers explained what that meant, is that they used, like down in the start in Louisiana, where there's a lot of mixed race people, and it was hard to tell if women were Black or white sometimes, unless you could see their hair. And so they would make them wear headscarves. That the Black women or biracial women had to wear these headscarves to indicate that they were Black. It was mandated by the government.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was like a gold star, you know, if you were a Jew in Germany. Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, that's awful. And I didn't understand that reference, and then obviously at some point, yeah, that was outlawed. But then in the 60s and 70s, women started wearing them again as like a political statement. Anyway, just I think they should explain some of these things better. But I don't know. The show is just so frenetic. It's just so it's like boom, 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 boom. We're talking about this. We're talking about that. We're talking about sex. We're talking about racism. We're talking about that. You know, like, oh, okay, hard to keep up.
Yes. So, So, I mean, obviously, right, I think it's lighter and better than last time. And I think obviously I think the anticipation was so high last time. I think we're all, our levels are a little bit reset this time around. So the feeling is different. But so I'm obviously happy that it's back, and I'm happy to be talking about it. And I'm so happy we have this goddamn podcast to talk about it.
Yeah, I know.
For sure.
Hopefully people find this interesting.
Yeah. Because we find this utterly fascinating.
I know. It's amazing how we can analyze this. I mean, it's a television show. These aren't real people, but we can analyze this stuff for hours. Yes. And we have. I mean, we still talk about episodes from, 20 years ago. And the references, something will happen. It's like, oh, that's just like when Charlotte did that thing on Sex and the City. And it's such a part of the cultural zeitgeist.
Yes. All right. Well, tell me about the other podcast that you listened to and the rabbit hole that you went down.
Oh, okay. So,
because this I thought was very interesting about who the writers are and how all of this is structured.
Yeah, because ultimately that's what gives us the show. And okay, so I was listening to a podcast. It's called Into It. It's a Vulture podcast with Sam Sanders. And he interviewed one of the writers, Samantha Irby, and she was on the first season and the second season. She wrote a couple. Well, let me explain this. She explained how the writing process goes. And she's a Black woman. She's an author, and
well, she wrote on the show Work in Progress on Showtime, and also Shrill, which was the SNL on Hulu show. Why can I not think of her name? The SNL woman. It will come to me. Both great shows.
But she's also an author. Like, she has published books and stuff. So anyway, she explained that what happens is that when the writers first all meet, Michael Patrick King has already mapped out the season and all the things that the different characters are going to go through and what's going to happen. And so then the writers all get together and they start brainstorming about, okay, well, how are we going to present this? What order is it going to go in? How are we going to do this? And they go through a series of rounds of talking and making notes and then talking about those notes. And so then it goes through that process probably for several weeks. And then Michael Patrick King then assigns who's going to do the final edits or, the final touches on each episode. So even though, they had hired Samantha Irby and a couple other women of color to come in and write, they really were just refining what he had already written and what the group had come up with. And the group consists basically of Michael Patrick King and then Julie Rottenberg and Eliza Zritsky, who were all the original Sex and the City writers. And so those are two white women and a white man, a white gay man. And so people have always talked about how they felt like Sex and the City just had a white gay male perspective or sensibility. And that a lot of the stuff that happened is like, oh, a woman would never write that, or like that just doesn't really happen. And so, so even though Samantha Irby is credited with writing these episodes, I feel like she was already just handed what, and then you put in some final touches. And so the vast majority of the episodes in both seasons were either written exclusively, the final writing was exclusively Michael Patrick King or Michael Patrick King with Julie and Elisa. Yeah. And you can still tell that.
Yes,
I mean, you can tell that they've brought in some, and then this season they have another new writer, Susan Fales Hill, who's very well known. She wrote on The Cosby Show and A Different World. She's an author. And there's a couple other new people coming in. I don't know who they are. I think there was a couple writers from that show, Two Broke Girls. So, but still, again, these are just kind of sprinkled in there. The majority of it is already there. So you can tell they're trying to do this. But I mean, and another thing that Samantha talked about was that ultimately this show is a business. And HBO is a multi-billion-dollar company. They want to make money. They don't want to put anything on the air that's going to like make their bottom line go down. They want, if there's anything in the show that they think is not right or is going to cost viewers, they're just going to cut it out. So, I mean, again, this is still kind of a fantasy. Yes. This whole show is still kind of a fantasy.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the effort.
Yeah. Boy. But that's the thing. Listening to if people really love this show, you should listen to the Writers Room podcast, because it is truly fascinating. Because especially, if you really, really have the time, listen to last year's, because you would watch the show and you're like, oh my God, what is this train wreck that I'm watching? And then you would listen to that podcast and you're like, oh, they really think this is great. They think this is good. They think this is genius. And when you hear them talking about it, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I see this now. Okay, yeah, I guess okay. Okay, I get it. Oh, okay. But really, truly, but it's almost like you need their commentary half the time to understand what they're thinking. Yeah. And
And a lot of the thinking is flawed.
Yeah.
And another thing Samantha Irby said was that Michael Patrick King also created all the new characters by himself.
He did? Oh.
Yes. He came in with the scaffolding of the season of here's all the plot lines, and he came up last season with all the new characters.
Oh.
So he created Che Diaz. He created, and so of course he's going to be very, protective and. Yeah, he defends in the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
He defends all this stuff that the rest of the world is going, oh my God, this is so cringy and cheesy.
Well, and he will say that he loves how polarizing Che Diaz is, he loves how Che Diaz is so, people feel this way about Che Diaz and that this is how, this is not boring and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, yeah, but we're laughing. We're not laughing, with you. We're laughing at you. We're laughing at you because you are making bad LA jokes.
Yeah.
That you have a list of writers that are brilliant writers, and you cannot come up. You have one joke that you can have, and you cannot come up with a better joke than I took an Uber from my bedroom to my bathroom.
Yeah.
You cannot come up with that, or I don't know, don't do anything. Just don't show the set at all. Just say, that's all my time tonight. Good night.
Yeah.
If you can't come up with something like that at all. I mean, that's the part. That's why. Or comedy concert. Or that everyone is standing for a comedy show. Or that Che Diaz is giving a TED Talk lecture for a comedy. Like, why can't you hire a really great comedian to write the jokes for Che to show us that Che is an excellent comedian? Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
But I think this is a bit of the problem of Michael Patrick King. And what you're talking about is that he has been at the helm of this for so long. And these two women, and I think they are in their little world. And I think that what they say goes. And he is so far up Sarah Jessica Parker's ass.
Oh, he thinks that she
shits the moon and the stars. And listen, I do think Sarah Jessica Parker is a very good actress. I've always think she is. I think she's got an amazing, and that woman's genes, like her body, how that woman has maintained this body all through these years. I mean, like, my God. She's got an incredible figure. She can wear anything, great fashion sense. And I do think she's an excellent actress, but my God, he just thinks that she can do anything. So I think that what's hard is he does not criticize her. She does not criticize him. There is no checks and balances. And Samantha Irby just wants to keep this job, so she's not going to push back on him. And yes, I think at the bottom line, but I think HBO wants to keep Michael Patrick King and Sarah Jessica Parker happy. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they have a lot more power, than this is a franchise. They're, just like The Sopranos. This is a real HBO built themselves on Sex and the City and all these other things. So they're going to make them happy. So come on.
Yeah, there's also a episode, like a bonus episode on that Writers Room podcast where, because it was just the 25th anniversary of Sex and the City, where Michael Patrick King talks with Sarah Jessica, Cynthia Nixon, and Kristen Davis, and which is interesting because then you get their perspectives and see what they have to think. But again, it was a lot of just complimenting each other.
Yeah. All those things always are. They always are. I mean, I started listening to it and I'm like, are you guys going to talk about Kim Cattrall at all?
Oh, no.
Are you guys going to bring this up or talk about her?
No.
I guess not. Okay.
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
That never happened. All right.
Well, we just went through a lot. So,
yeah. And we probably missed several things.
Yes. But we just love this show and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it through the summer. So hopefully the show's good. It's interesting, or at least if it's polarizing, we'll have something to talk about, something to debate.
Well, we always love to talk about it.
Yes.
What's good, bad, whatever.
All right. So thank you for sticking with us. If you like this podcast, please give us a 5-star review and write us a few kind words. We are on social media at Psych Legal Pop on Instagram and TikTok. What else? Subscribe. We love downloads. And tell a friend, tell 2 friends, tell 10 friends. Please spread the word of Psych Legal Pop. You know, we are growing and growing, and we just appreciate all of it. And what else? We're here every Tuesday, Thursday. Tuesdays are Sister Wives coverage. This past Tuesday, we just talked about season 4, episode 1. So that's where we are. And then Thursdays we're going to be covering And Just Like That. I guess we need to weave in maybe, because I do have some comments on the Kardashians and some of these other things. We're going to have to figure out how to weave in, since we're doing those 2 things, other things that we want to talk about. But we'll get there. We'll figure it out. So
we're trying to make it, light, fun summer.
Yeah. Yes, it's going to be a fun summer.
We're taking a little break from,
the heaviness,
abuse and
cults and molestation.
I know people love that stuff,
and abuse.
I just need a little break.
Yeah, it needs to be light, fun.
Yes, summer.
What did Anthony say? I love balls. All right. Well, Che Pasta, everybody. Che Pasta.
Peace out.
Bye.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Give me a mountain with lots to do. Give me the sunshine, give me a dew. Give me something simple and true. All I need is sunshine and a cool, refreshing mountain dew. So give me my good friends, give me a dew.
Grab some friends and an ice-cold Mountain Dew today.
Mountain Dew.